Making this kind of system operational would require many elements that are not currently possible. A common metric, like dollar equivalents for all social and environmental goals. High quality and up-to-date data sources for all these different domains. Financial information is available at least on a weekly basis. We're lucky if environmental information is updated on an annual basis. And social metrics usually don't exist. At a broader scale, this is the kind of aspiration that we see in the form of French President Nicolas Sarkozy's new initiative to report on growth national happiness, and the recently released Stiglitz-Sen report on the failures of GDP and opportunities for new measures of social progress. The integration that is aspired to within different quarters of sustainability thinking does not stop at horizontal integration of measures of progress and performance, however. There is, in addition, the question of temporal integration, i.e. the need to be able to consider future timescales and the needs of future generations. Further, there is the question of vertical integration across spatial and institutional scales, the notions of urban metabolism, and the systems-based thinking that is entailed by planning for the city as a mostly or ultimately closed-loop system, attempt to summarize the operational side of the integrative sustainability thinking. While this approach gains credibility amongst some sustainability thinkers and practitioners, as increasing numbers of cities from Calgary to Ottawa and beyond attempt 100-year plans, for example, social research and humanities research questions what this approach does for the social systems within cities. We have more or less reliable models for the ecosphere-dominated components of the urban metabolic system, but what modes do we have of to measure social interactions and evolution over the medium to long term? As we are all learning through media bombardment, among other channels, the concepts of ecological footprint, the climate hockey stick curve, and bioaccumulation of toxins, what mechanisms are we left with for understanding the social sustainability footprint, the possible shape of a social sustainability curve, the accumulation of social sustainability capital? As social and humanities researchers, we are bound to communicate the ways in which our social and cultural relationships determine how and how much we appropriate, use, and transform nature. Nature may well exist independently of humanity, but given that it is humanity that has the reins of a possible future sustainable development path, social systems, processes, and institutions need to be at the center of any attempt to achieve sustainability. If we do not improve our approach in this direction, our efforts to improve environmental quality and conditions under the sustainability banner risk jeopardizing our greatest achievements in the social realm, institutions and understandings of democracy, philosophies of peace and tolerance, movements for social justice, reparations and reconciliation, and rights for particular disadvantaged groups, from women to indigenous people to the poor and marginalized. A Marxist understanding of sustainability goes so far as to suggest that the way out of the jeopardy of dominant sustainability analyses is to frame the sustainability challenge as a question of controlling capital at the center of urbanization. And you can see how this kind of a definition of sustainability might not go over so well with the kind of vision that is expressed here in the PricewaterhouseCoopers model. But even amongst those who are attempting to integrate environmental and socially oriented visions of sustainable development, there's a recognition that there might not be a common nexus point. This is a figure from the Global Footprint Network. So Matisse Walkernagel and his colleagues, currently based in San Francisco, started out at UBC, so Canadian idea, ecological footprint analysis. And it's kind of a blurry figure, but it's showing the ecological footprint is the vertical axis here. The horizontal axis is the Human Development Index. So this is the UN index, which is used to compare the relative performance of countries based on 3 key indicators of well-being: childhood literacy, so a measure of literacy, GDP, measure of economic performance, and life expectancy at birth. And each of those dots represents a country, and you can see there's a color scheme for the countries in the different continents of the world. But generally, as the ecological footprint increases, Generally, there is no country which is both below the ecological footprint threshold, which is considered to be sustainable from an environmental point of view, and above the threshold for human development, which is considered to be equivalent to passing from developed world status, from developing world status to developed world status. This figure is a little bit, complicated. But this comes from the Stiglitz-Sen report, which I referenced a few minutes ago. And it shows a really fascinating relationship between GDP per capita and life expectancy at birth. So here we're looking at time on the horizontal axis, right? So moving from the 70s to the current day. And in the left-hand vertical axis, you're looking at the ratio of GDP between France and the US. On the right hand, represented by this, and that's represented by the blue line, which is going across the screen. On the right vertical axis, you're looking at the life expectancy at birth, just for men, between France and the US. And what you're seeing is an almost perfect negative correlation between the two. Right? So as GDP goes up, there's almost a perfect relationship with life expectancy at birth decreasing in relative terms. And this is just France and the US. You can look at this figure and be very concerned. But you can also look at this figure and see some cause for hope, because this is coming from two Nobel Prize-winning economists, Joe Stiglitz and Amartya Sen, under the banner of a new initiative to create new measures of progress, recognizing that this is an unsatisfactory state of affairs. So to conclude, Hirschman used the perversity, futility, jeopardy schema in an attempt not to draw battle lines or entrench divisions between liberals and conservatives, but to show how the discourse that serves to separate these two basic groups in contemporary society is shaped not so much by fundamental personality traits, but simply by the imperatives of argument, almost regardless of the desires, character, or convictions of the participants. I would like to challenge us as researchers interested in the prospect of sustainability at home, in our communities, and at the global scale, to fail to be discouraged by the arguments made in the name of perversity, futility, and jeopardy of a pragmatic approach to sustainable development. The discourse of sustainable development, as presented by its proponents, tends toward the presentation of the ideal world, ecotopia, Shangri-La, Lotus Land. The social science and humanities analysis of sustainability needs to be about both moving towards these ideas as well as about their critique and the realization and reflection that there is no single best case scenario. In engaging in this important and necessary critique, however, our studies of sustainability should beware the trap of concluding that because our world cannot become the best of all possible worlds, it is nonetheless not the worst of all possible worlds, nor is it destined to sink to such depths. Unintended consequences do, of course, exist, but they may as often be welcome as unwelcome. Experiments in new processes and new strategies may fail to affect practice in the near term, but there are social learning values of participation that supersede direct implementation effects, and sometimes meaningful implementation effects take much longer than we would hope to appear. And just to conclude, I'd like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to offer you these thoughts, and that the future has become much more important for me to be optimistic about the future since the birth of the